were talking about what happened to Marina Rodriguez. She brutalized Michelle Waterson-Gomez. She says she knew she needed to finish this fight. Like, this was one of those where some people felt uncomfortable watching.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
Fights, injuries, main events, it happened. It happened to us this weekend at UFC Vegas 79. Mateusz Gamrot walks out the winner versus Rafael Fiziev, TKO, round 2, due to a knee injury. It's not the conclusiveness that we wanted. We're never going to really know how that fight would have truly played out over the course of 5 rounds, but we do have somebody who is going to be entering that upper echelon of the lightweight division. Welcome, the gamer, Mateusz Gamrot. Folks, my name is Derick G. Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast, and welcoming me, as always, my co-host, the Santa Fe Bomber, the New Mexico native himself, AJ. Knee injuries, I got him, you got him, Fiziev got him now. I mean, we're all hurting, brother. How are you feeling about this main event?
Derek, it happens to the best of us, and it looks like it's happening to everybody, my man. This is not the way we all wanted the fight to go down, but it is, like you said, a conclusion nonetheless. And yeah, Mateusz Gamrot did look fire, so it does seem a little unwelcomed of an outcome, but it is still an outcome nonetheless. And like I said, Mateusz Gamrot looked fire in the fight, brother. It was an interesting weekend of fights. Derek, how did you take away from the whole event?
I mean, the whole event as a whole was definitely a exiting party to, hey, we have a week off. Let's regroup in a couple of weeks for UFC Vegas 80. So some good fights, man. A couple layups that completely missed the mark. We're going to talk about all that good stuff. We have Accountability Hour coming up in just one moment. But I will say, in regards to the main event, man, if we have any example of somebody who suffered a very similar situation in terms of trajectory of their division, it would be Tom Aspinall. And he ended up coming back fine. So you got to hope nothing but the best for Rafael Fiziev. But we also do understand a lot of his fight style comes from the explosiveness of, the planting on those, on the ligaments and stuff. So, folks, look at the scoreboard below. 102-69-3 for the second place person. That is me, but I did win the week. AJ, I'm right there behind you. 104-66-3. That is the score to beat. You're at 61% accuracy on the year. We are a little short, actually a little kind of far short from our 69-70% goal for the year. At this point, man, this is Accountability Hour. We're about to get into it. Is that a realistic goal for us to be able to hit with the last remaining 3-ish months of the year?
I think it is, Derek, especially with the amounts we're hitting pretty consistently, at least, 3, 4, 5 of the fights of the night we're getting correctly. So there's still a lot of money to be made, but you're right, Derek. It was Accountability Hour, especially for me and my props. I don't want to get into it too early. But these ones, man, I gotta figure something else over here. Yeah, I'm happy you won the week, but you folks, this is still 0-0. I might be in the lead right here, but this is still a close fight nonetheless. But the most important part, we're still winning you money on all the consensus picks we got going for you. So let us know down in the comments. Let us know if you're winning that money, because that is the golden egg at the end of the day, getting some cash in the pockets. And yeah, like I said, it was Accountability Hour, but we're still making that green flow. So either way, we're still happy over here.
That's right, folks. So before we get into everything, drop a like, subscribe, do all the fun stuff. Really, the main thing that we care about is that you hit subscribe. AJ, right now we're at 699 subscribers for the Bloody Water Podcast Army. That's almost 700. Like I said, we're raiding small villages at this point. They're just passing out the bag. They're saying, take it. We don't want no problems. So, listen, subscribe if you haven't. Folks, we're going to talk about it more in a second. But AJ, let's get into a couple of these recap sheets, bro. All right, man. I love when I see a bunch of gold on the left and or right side of the screen, but the thing that really, really irks me, man, it gives me a hard time sleeping at night, is when I take a look at the prop result and it shows miss across the board. Now, we both missed on what felt like layups, man. They felt like surefire locks. The fighter we chose won the fight. It is just not the method that we chose. So, for me, I thought Charles Jourdain goes to a point decision against Ricardo Ramos, two really scrappy guys, and we just see a hard-fought decision. However, Jourdain knew something we didn't. He knew a guillotine was there. He kept going for it, and he got it. Marina Rodriguez, on the other hand, AJ, I know you must have been sweating 2 minutes into that fight. Like, yo, Rodriguez is just putting it on the karate hottie. What did you think about that?
I just can't be taking any more minus money on the prop bets, folks. That's where it feels worse. 2 weeks in a row with the most likely outcome possible. And I falter. My bad. I let down on that one. But yes, Derek, I was sweating. The elbows of Marina Rodriguez, the pressure, everything was there. Man, it was a rough show for the karate hottie. And still, even then, staying in it, bro. When she's smiling bloody as can be, I know my lady was cringing. But a lot of us were hoping she'd be able to pull it out. No, Marina Rodriguez is an absolute savage, Derek.
Did you think at any point, especially when Waterson-Gomez made it out of that first round, somehow miraculously, did you think at any point, okay, I still got a shot here, she might go the distance? Did you realistically think that?
Realistically, no, but there was a glimmer of hope there. There was about 2% chance where I was thinking, all right, it might be wrestling season from here on out, ducking under and getting to those hips. Didn't work out that way, though.
Didn't work out. I mean, listen, same for me, folks. So, hey, my bad, our bad. We took the L on that one, but we acknowledge it like men. You feel me? We don't run away from our losses. Take it on the chin, keep rolling. Now, AJ, really quickly, let me bring it back up. At the end of the day, Bloody Water Podcast consensus picks. That's something that we definitely love to review here. And we did go 3-1 on the consensus pick. So as you mentioned, we're pretty much on the money right here. I have a strong feeling personally, you'll never know, that the main event would have went our way had it actually played out. But Danny Gay, Bryce Mitchell, just in one word, do you take the pick back, or were you on the money in terms of your logic train? I kind of think you were.
I think I was, Derek. I think I was a lot closer than a lot of people were giving Danny Ige credit for. It was a close fight. It was an interesting one, to say the least, for sure.
And we'll talk about all of that good stuff, folks. So let's jump into some main card recap. But before we do that, I have to just tell you one more time, you definitely need to subscribe. That's the thing that drives this program. This is a grassroots program. So by you telling a friend to tell a friend to subscribe and to share with their friends, we grow exponentially. We win you money. We win money. Everybody wins. AJ, you got anything before we jump into these main card picks?
I do, Derek, and I'm talking specifically to you, that person that's looking right at this thing right now. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people out there just watching the videos. You get the content, you love it. But if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't pushed that button right now, I'm calling on you. We need one more to get to 700. That's it. And then it's on to the stars from after that. So yes, I'm talking to you, looking at me right now. Yes, press that button, subscribe, and make sure you share with your friends. So that way this small army can turn into a massive brigade and we can roll through grabbing money left and right.
That's right, folks. And programming notes aside, let's talk about some results. Let's get it.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ. AJ, I really thought that this fight, had it gone 5 rounds, we're seeing at least 20 shots from Mateusz Gamrot, man. He's going out there. He's going to put it on Rafael Fiziev fast, early. What we saw in that first round was a feeling out period, man. It was a lot of chess, a lot of high-level martial arts and thinking in there. Do you think, because it started to speed up a touch going into the second round, do you think that Mateusz Gamrot would have been able to inflict his will in his game plan, or do we think that we just did not see enough to make any conclusion of this fight?
I'm going a little bit more with the latter, Derek. I think at the point in which the second round started, we saw Fiziev really start to pick up the pace, start to throw a little more effort into those hits. Maybe it's why he ended up getting injured the way he did, because of the explosiveness, and that's one of his greatest gifts, like you were saying before. But because of that, I think the tempo was picking up. Time would only have told if Mateusz Gamrot would have been able to keep up, but I don't think so, Derek. I think we would have been more successful if this would have played out in a 5-round fight. What do you think, though? Do you think that pressure was really jumping up? Was the power too much for Mateusz to actually, at that moment, nonetheless, 3 rounds down the road?
Yeah, I think there's really just not enough data to be able to make any assessment and not sound like a fool. You know what I mean? You could talk as confident as you want. Oh, yeah, Gamrot would have won. Fiziev would have won. But there's just no way to know. You just have to take it as the L and keep it pushing. This is very similar to Curtis Blades' Tom Aspinall, where he blows his knee out early. And then there's really no, we need to see that fight again. Like Curtis Blades, Tom Aspinall, we need to see that eventually. I think this is going to be a fight that if Fiziev can recover back to full health, come back to full explosiveness, I want to see this fight again. But this does beg the question that the implications were there. I said in the preview show, one of these guys, they're on the cusp of really waking up this division, of being that top 4 upper echelon fighter. It has now been awarded to Mateusz Gamrot. So the question ultimately becomes, he lost to Beneil Dariush when they were matched up. That's a top 4 guy. So of the top 4, one of them you already couldn't get past. The other 3, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, Islam Makhachev. I might be missing one. Does he get past those guys?
I don't think so, Derek. I mean, if I wish, like you said, there was more of a conclusive performance in order for us to be able to analyze at least a little bit more. But right now, like you said, Benny as the lowest hanging fruit on that ladder, and he's still going to get past it. Sounds like a hell of a mountain to climb. I just don't feel confident in saying it right now, Derek. Maybe yes, but I don't think so. What about you?
Dustin Poirier was the guy that I forgot on that list. Maybe can get past a Dustin Poirier. You know, you really focus on the wrestling and stuff like that. But then again, Poirier got the jiu-jitsu, so it's tough, and the fantastic boxing. Either way, it's just going to be something that we're going to have to kind of figure out, because realistically, I don't know what the next move is. If none of those guys, you can actually like go ahead and get matched up with them, he has to fight somebody. You would imagine he doesn't want to fight down. I think Michael Chandler is a potential matchup that you have right there. Jalen Turner's calling for a rematch. It's just, I don't know, man. Inconclusive, terrible way to end a main event. And then for Rafael Fiziev, like I said, you just hope he goes back into that kind of Tom Aspinall recovery mode to come back on top. But do you have anything else on this main event?
I mean, I genuinely don't. I don't see Mateusz Gamrot getting the bump he's hoping for from this win. I mean, yeah, it was a win. It was a TKO on paper, but I think that Jalen Turner rematch is probably the most likely outcome we're looking for. And if that's the case, still going to be a good scrap nonetheless.
Yeah. I'm trying to just think, why wouldn't he get the bump? Only reason I could think that he wouldn't is because it just was a shitty way to end the fight. But then again, Chito Vera, is there much of a difference when he beat Sean O'Malley? Like, he got a bump on the injury TKO, right? And it's a little bit different because it's like you kicked his knee and then his foot fell asleep or whatnot. But to me, it's just the same kind of circumstance of just an injury is what won the fight, right?
Yeah, I can see where you're drawing the similarities, Derek. But even then, arguably, Sean O'Malley got more of a bump after too. Like even then, you know, the SAR rose a little bit more. And I genuinely think just a lot of people that are looking to sign that Mateusz Gamrot fighter and be like, well, he didn't really deserve that win. On to the next. Unfortunately, I think that is the case. I hope not, because he is a good talent nonetheless.
Absolutely. So, I mean, listen, a win is a win is a win. Some people didn't like that he was celebrating the win, but he went out there and technically he did get his hand raised. So shout out to Mateusz, the gamer Gamrot, and we'll see what's next for this lightweight division. I thought it was not going to be stagnant after this. It might still be. I mean, we'll see. All right, AJ, let's move on over to the co-main event. Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell versus Dan Ige. Or maybe we could say Bryce, may Christ thou be with you, Mitchell. I don't know, man. But he brought the Bible into the octagon, which was very Diego Sanchez-esque. So I hope that you got a little bit of like entertainment out of that one. But nonetheless, this is a man with conviction. And he showed it in the octagon on Saturday night, man. He, with the bruised, closed up, bloodied up eyeball, went out there and just inflicted his will on Dan Ige, which is kind of what I thought was going to happen. Takedown after takedown after takedown, washing machine. And the most important thing here is that Dan Ige was much more of a live dog than people gave him credit for, than I gave him credit for. AJ, 30-27. I do not agree with that scorecard. What did you think when you heard 30-27 in favor of Bryce Mitchell for the result?
That the old adage never dies, Derek. Do not leave it to the judges, because there's going to be one, at least one, if not more, that screw you over in that fight. 30-27 is ridiculous. And in fact, for the first round, about round and a half, I thought, oh shit, Dan Ige might have this. Sprawling like a madman, stopping the takedowns, looked good, and then the pace caught up to him, and then the pressure. And I gotta admit, it looked like Bryce Mitchell with his mental fortitude, man, taking, like you said, eyes shut, swollen completely, and still working his moves, still getting into advantageous spots. Very impressive for Bryce Mitchell. But yeah, 30-27. Were you as appalled as I was, Derek?
Yeah, I thought that was crazy, because I thought that there's a world where Dan Ige won that fight 29-28. Like, there's a world where that happened. You know, I think that it just depends on how you score things, right? Because that what people are saying is Bryce Mitchell lay and prayed his way to a victory. And I'm like, on one hand, that's true. On the other hand, if you know what you're watching, he was going for submission attempts. He was trying to get that arm triangle on Dan Ige multiple times. There were spots where I know that feeling too, where you just don't feel quite comfortable enough to really go for the submission. So what do? You just kind of keep transitioning spots, go for back takes, try to get a rear naked choke. But AJ, I do have to ask, given that we saw a very similar round to kind of what went down in like the Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko, lots of back control, just kind of hanging out, doing there, trying to go for the choke. No 10-8s, huh? You know, like, so where are we at? You know what I mean? Just checking in. Where are we at with that, AJ?
I'm glad somebody's keeping them accountable, Derek, because you're right, no 10-8s. And I even saw a thing on Twitter where it was, I'm pretty sure it was the Nevada State Athletic Commission, was having a seminar on what a 10-8 actually is to the refs, having a breakdown of how to do your job, which is a little ridiculous that it's happening now. But still, I mean, at least it's opening. So maybe that's why no 10-8s. You know, they got a little briefing. That's ridiculous. But still, I don't know, Derek. Seems a little shiesty.
Yeah, so let's just break this down just a little bit further, man. Bryce Mitchell and was ruthless with the takedown attempts. When I take a look at it, he went for 15 total takedown attempts, only landed 5. So, like, shout out to the takedown defense of Dan Ige. But what do you think Dan Ige could have done to actually win this fight? If you look at the total combined strikes, man, it was like 70 combined strikes. Bryce Mitchell barely edged out Dan Ige with like 5 strikes, 37-32. So what could he have done to actually win this fight?
I think if Dan Ige would have maintained top pressure in that last round, Derek, that's where we could have seen a transition. I mean, it looked like even when Bryce Mitchell was struggling, he was still in control. And it's because he was, man. He was able to lock up, the body triangle, work his way towards back mounts, stay in, look like he was a lot more comfortable in those situations instead of frantically trying to move. And I think if Dan Ige would have just had the control, maybe we would have seen those odds makers flipped, but still then 30-27, that doesn't explain that one. Yeah. So maybe it was just the card stacked against him. But what do you think, Derek? If Dan Ige was able to stay on top or at least stay in control, get back up, make this a standing fight, was that it, or was there anything else that you could see Dan Ige doing to prevail?
There was one thing that I thought that was the missing component, which we talked about in the pre-show, where Dan Ige accepted being put on the back foot, back against the cage, and waiting for Bryce Mitchell's takedown attempts instead of walking him down, trying to take advantage of, dude, you're shooting a lot of takedowns. I'm going to push the pace on you, and I'm going to make sure that you're going backwards, because you could see the shot coming a lot quicker when they're moving backwards and then having to jump in. But also, Bryce Mitchell has a nasty single and a nasty double, and is very quick, so I could see the hesitation there. But yeah, I think that a couple mistakes fixed, and Dan Ige could definitely win this matchup. So if we did see a rematch, yeah, I think that the odds would be much different. Either way, big decision win, -115 decision prop for Bryce Mitchell. That was not as easy as it should have been. All right, let's keep it pushing, AJ. You want to talk about rematches? I'm down to talk about rematches. But sometimes we're right in a preview show when we say, why exactly is this rematch happening? When we talked about it, AJ, we had no real answer, and we saw the outcome of a rematch that was just unnecessary to take place. Marina Rodriguez, I feel, maybe felt slighted coming into this matchup. We were talking about what happened to Marina Rodriguez, right? And she put on a performance. She said she knew she needed to finish this fight. She brutalized Michelle Waterson-Gomez, man. Like, this was one of those where some people felt uncomfortable watching. Even the hardest MMA fans, right, hardcore people, felt a little uncomfortable. Like, Michelle Waterson is getting the brakes beat off of her, and they need to call this fight. Was there a point in this contest where you said, I might just have to turn this thing off, man, because the referee is not doing his job? What'd you think?
I don't know about having to turn it off, Derek, but there was a point right around the end of the first where I was like, man, I'm surprised this judge isn't stopping this, referee isn't stopping this fight. And then, like, out of nowhere, my girl goes, yeah, I mean, Michelle Waterson's still fighting back, but she's getting absolutely fucked up. And that's really what it was. It was a beating like we haven't seen in quite a long time. And it felt hard to watch. I wasn't close to turning the TV off, Derek. I wanted to see how the outcome was, especially because we know the grit and the character that Michelle Waterson possesses. She's going to stay in there. She's going to be fighting. And you saw her, man, bloody as can be, still smiling, ready to get after it. But that was a beating like she stole something. It was a rough one, Derek. Were you in the same boat, or were you think Michelle Waterson could have pulled this off?
You know I love violence, and I'm going to watch that all day long, man. That does not bother me not one bit. But I do understand, like, the casual viewer's concern, right? If you've watched Michelle Waterson fight, she doesn't quit on herself. You know that, right? So you're okay with it because you're like, dude, she's a dog. And she's ready to go in there, and she's ready to get it, smiling with the blood like you mentioned, right? I do think that 9, maybe 8 out of 10 referees would have called the fight off in the first round. I don't know why this referee felt they needed to give her such a long leash, especially because she was showing she was trying to advance positions and stop getting hit, but she wasn't hitting back. She was kind of shelling up. So I think that, yeah, they made Marina Rodriguez work way harder than she needed to for that TKO victory. Kind of concerned me for a bit because I was like, yo, she might have gassed herself out that first round, just raining down shots. But let's talk about this really quickly, man. Had Michelle Waterson been able to keep her foot on the gas with those takedown attempts like she just opened it up with, for a split second, I was like, yo, am I about to blow this pick? Like, is Waterson really about to upset? Man, I said she could have been a live dog. Do you think that would have been the path to victory, or do you think that getting caught up in that clinch negated all takedown attempts?
I mean, we saw the getting caught up in the clinch kind of negated all those takedown attempts, and nonetheless, the head was bloody. You can't see anything. You're tired. raining down elbows on your face. Yeah. But for about a split second, especially at the start of the second round, when I saw her realizing that wrestling was the way to go, need to get to those hips, need to do that. That was a glimmer of hope for the Karate Hottie fans. But still, even then, Derek, we saw how powerful and how vicious Marina Rodriguez was in there. There was even a point where she held her arms up and looked at the ref like, "Really, bro? Still okay? Bap, bap." 3 more, and it was a rough one. It was a rough one.
Yeah, this was one of the moments where you could tell there is a fighter in there that's like, I don't want to hurt you as bad as I have to right now. So, sorry, you know what I mean? But it is what it is. I'm here to do my job, and I'm here to let people know I'm going back on a title run. So, question to close this one out. First off, Marina Rodriguez plus 375 TKO. What a steal for a prop right there in this matchup. Completely missed the mark on that one, both of us. I mean, everyone probably across the board. But the real question here is, what does Marina Rodriguez need to do to reclaim her position into the formidable foe she once was that could get a title shot, man? Because if you look at the division right now, we're looking at the women's flyweight division. Marina Rodriguez, or we're looking at the strawweight division, excuse me. Marina Rodriguez is relegated down to number 8, man. You got Mackenzie Dern, Vina Jandiroba, Jessica Andrade, Lemos. You got a bunch of characters in front of you, man. She called out Tatiana Suarez. I don't think she gets that fight personally, but what do you think?
I don't think she gets that fight, Derek, but just listen off the ones you were talking about, like Virna Jandiroba, maybe she needs to run that back, get it again. Like there's ways in order to kind of get to that spot, but I don't know. I think it's going to have to take another 2 finishes, another 2 performances like she had tonight or last night against Michelle Waterson, to where she's vicious and bloody and really dominating her opponent. Because if Marina Rodriguez has any more close fights or not as decisive victories, I don't think she's going to get the same bump she had. But she starts putting people out, finish them, then yes, possibly. Do you agree, or you see a different path?
I agree. And I also think that, given that I'm a real big fan of Marina Rodriguez, she's just kind of let us down in some of the bigger spots that we've kind of, backed her in. The way she got taken down by Michelle Waterson, she needs to be really careful calling out these wrestlers, dude. You know what I mean? Like, that takedown was too easy. She ended up getting back to her feet, which was good. We saw urgency this time around, but I think it's going to take a couple finishes and some more outstanding stuff, maybe an injury or something, to get right back where she was. Either way, a mauling, bludgeoning, brutalization by Marina Rodriguez. All right. Bryan Battle submits AJ Fletcher. Now, when we were talking about this matchup, I said, you know what? You want to be big-brained, right? Let's talk about maybe AJ Fletcher, rear naked choke submission on Bryan Battle. Well, he made us eat some crow here today. He pulled out the approach, man, that made me understand Bryan Battle is going to be a real problem. He literally pulled out the Johnny Walker approach. He said, I'm going to stand my ground. I'm going to teep kick you 1,000,000 times, and I'm going to make you close the distance, and every time you do, I'm going to make you pay. And AJ Fletcher, even though he got off some good offense in round 1, probably won the first round, as soon as Bryan Battle put his foot on the gas, it was pretty much game over from there. What'd you think about this spot, man? Smash spot for Bryan Battle.
Smash spot for Bryan Battle, Derek, and everybody is finally being put on notice that Pooh Bear is no more, man. The Butcher is here to stay, and Bryan Battle put on an absolute performance, even with AJ Fletcher, I agree, still in the round with that last, I think it was a left hook or whatever it was that dropped Battle. Even with him still in that round, it was a majority mauling for Bryan Battle all the way up until then, and then all the way through the remainder of the fight. So I think, bro, this was a really good fight for Battle going forward, showing that, yeah, he's now the guy to be noticed, now the guy to be put on, to really be worried about having to fight this dude, because we saw even against the Fletcher, with the size disparity that he had against Fletcher, maintaining that range and knowing how to use the range are 2 different things. So this is good to see Bryan Battle have that cognition and be able to roll through those. Where do you see Bryan Battle going, Derek? Is this guy all the way to the top, or is he going to be one of the fighters that's just in the mix for a long, long time?
I think he's still got a little bit of ways to go till you enter that top 15. Only reason being is that we saw what happened with that Rinat Fakhretdinov fight. So when you start getting to these ranked guys that have the big wrestling pedigrees, we might start seeing some problems. But for the person who, I mean, listen, is it fair to say that? Look at what he did to AJ Fletcher. Like I said, AJ Fletcher is legitimately a solid grappler, man. It's just interesting because we see him getting out-grappled. We see him, the classic story that I see in the jiu-jitsu gym of like the wrestler who's really smashing everybody when they're on top, but you get them on their back and everything just melts. And that's kind of what I keep seeing with AJ Fletcher. Bryan Battle is another guy where you see him on top, you got some real problems. You see him on bottom, there's not really the same effectiveness that we've seen as of late. I don't know. I hope I eat crow on this one because I think that this dude, what a story, man. Last pick on the Ultimate Fighter, 4-1 in the UFC, 4 finishes. This dude is on a trajectory to be an Ultimate Star. And he got a little bit of mouthpiece on the mic, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to Bryan Battle. But AJ, plus 275 submission prop. Once again, missed heavy on that one. I didn't know if it was going to be a TKO, but I thought that plus 250 decision would have been fire right there. Did you have any confidence in him actually submitting AJ Fletcher?
Nah, not really, Derick. Not really at all. Rear naked choke. It was kind of crazy that we were calling for AJ Fletcher, and sure enough, it ends up being the opposite end. So I didn't see it coming. I definitely thought a ground and pound, was a lot more likely. I definitely liked the finish for Bryan Battle. But submission might be a new little arsenal we'll see out of Bryan Battle. Hopefully he is able to try to transform from what you're talking about, that wrestler with top pressure, now being able to flip it and still be comfortable on his back and work submissions that way too. Another fold. We'll see if it comes.
Well, he does say in terms of MMA wrestling, he's one of the best guys to do it. MMA grappling, I guess I should say. So shout out to Bryan Battle. Big win right here. And to open us up, man, Charles Jourdain, he gets a super big submission victory, guillotine choke over Ricardo Ramos, man. I can't tell you how impressive that is. Everybody came into this matchup talking and exuding about Ramos and how he's so fun to watch because he has so many different ways to win the fight, which I agreed. Flashy striker, fantastic grappler. I mean, what more do you want from a young prospect who's kind of flying under the radar? Well, enter Charles Jourdain, and what did we see? AJ, we said it. If he's calculated, if he's the guy we think he is, where he's growing into this patient, meticulous, calculated killer, it's going to be a rough night for Ricardo Ramos, and it absolutely was. Were you as confused as everybody else when you saw Charles Jourdain continuously try to go for guillotine chokes when he didn't have it? And I want to talk about the technical aspect in one moment, but just from like that perspective, were you like, why does this dude keep going for this?
In fact, even on the one where he cinched it up, Derick, I said verbally out loud, again? Stop. Stop going for this, man. You're just putting yourself in a horrible situation against a very dangerous grappler. Now you're on the back. But I guess, proof is in the pudding. Derick Jourdain saw something there, realized, must have seen it in tape because he was continuously attacking the guillotine. What about you? Were you as, not as appalled, were you as shocked to see him continuously go for it, Derick?
Well, from a jiu-jitsu perspective, yeah, because he actually put himself in a terrible spot. So for the folks who are just listening, the best way that I can describe this is that once you get your arm wrapped around the neck of Ricardo Ramos, your Charles Jourdain, right, and you start cinching up that guillotine, you sit back, you try to put your leg over. Ricardo Ramos was doing a great job of passing on over to the side to nullify the guillotine, meaning the guillotine is no longer there. So now, if you keep your arm wrapped around your opponent's neck, you're actually setting yourself up for a choke. It's called a Von Flue choke. So this allows the person to put all of their weight, literally all their weight on the blood point in your neck and just put you to bed. It happens very, very quickly. So I'm like, Charles Jourdain, you are a black belt. You're about to get Von Flue. This is like the easiest trick in the book right here. How are you going to allow this to happen to you? Clearly, he felt fine. Clearly, it wasn't in the right spot for him to be worried because he never even saw the worry on the face. Because sometimes when you realize, oh, shoot, my arm is trapped. I can't get it out. I have this glove stopping me too. My opponent's holding my arm. I'm about to get choked. He didn't have that. 6 scrambles, got back up. When he jumped that guillotine for the last time, I said, bro, just like you. Again, what are we doing? And then you see Ramos tapping for dear life, and you're like, this dude, Charles Jourdain, knew something we did not. Hey, man, listen, I can't say nothing else. Eat my crow right there. You knew what you was doing. Submission, first round. This man looks like an absolute killer. Looks like the best version of Charles Jourdain that we have seen to date. Would you agree?
Hungry, Derick, hungry as can be. Jourdain walked in like an animal that hadn't eaten in a couple weeks, staring down, locked in, focused, dialed. This is a new Jourdain that we're going to see kind of really start to come into his own. I wish I had how old up this guy is because he's really starting to grow into that best version of the fighter he can be. Now that, yes, he is calm, calculated, composed, able to think through the fight, but also very dangerous, still willing to put himself in a dangerous situation, get the finish. This is a hell of a fight for Jourdain going forward, man.
Absolutely. And Jourdain is 27 years old, man. So big win for Charles Jourdain. All right, AJ, with that being said, that is your main card recap right there. We do got a couple of prelims that we should definitely be going over. So, AJ, let's go ahead and do that. Now, listen, the feature prelim, Dan Argueta versus Miles Johns, that ended up being a really, really fun back and forth fight. And this was a fight where we said, Dan Argueta, we love the wrestling approach, but you have to be careful when you enter a octagon against Miles Johns, credentialed, had some very good work in the cage thus far, and he showed it. He put it on full display, man. It's that sprawl back and then just keep putting it on your opponent and make them eat your punches with their face. And that's what happened right here. How impressed were you with this win?
Very impressed, Derek, especially because Dan Argueta never quit. The pressure that Dan Argueta was putting on Miles Johns was so impressive. I thought, man, Argueta might win this fight just alone, on pressure alone, but with Miles Johns just dropping him, even with the jab, the impact that Miles John had going forward in this fight, I definitely think that's what pulled it out for him. But still a very close fought battle. And you can see even when Miles Johns got his hands raised, he still dropped to the down in almost disbelief or almost release of, okay, good, I did win that fight. Because he knew it was close. It was a very hard fought, man, but just a rough one for Dan Argueta because you're right. Eating shots to the face every single time Miles Johns would throw them out there, even though you look like you're the fresher fighter, you look like you're the more dominant fighter, still getting dropped with jabs is never a good look for the judges.
And even in a fight where we thought it was really close, I think everybody across the board probably thought, man, this is razor thin. You still had two 30-27s in favor of Miles John. So this felt like a card where the winner was picked correctly, but the cards were just like, yo, what are y'all judging right here, man? So big win by Miles Johns. Tim, the Dirty Bird Means. AJ, we talked about it. You're 39 years old. This is like damn near 50 fights into your career. You're on the first 3-fight losing streak of your entire tenured career. And then you run into a knockout artist like Andre Fialho, who's also riding a 3-fight losing streak. Sometimes when your back is against the wall, you do spectacular things. I think that's damn near verbatim, more or less what we said in the preview show, the sentiment for the Dirty Bird. AJ, he put on. He looked like a madman in there, and he looked like a rejuvenated dude who says, if I'm going to be anything, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to gatekeep, and you guys can't get past me, man, because I'm going to put it on you. Tim Means looked fantastic, and put away Andre Fialho. What'd you make of it?
Fantastic, Derek. Looked like a younger Tim Means, and not the fact that he's, looked old, but he just hasn't aged, like we always say, Father Time is undefeated. Tim Means is one of the few people that are still scrapping just as good as he has in the last 10 years. It's wild to say even 10 years because this dude's been doing it longer than that. But Tim Means, the way he was going about it viciously, hurting Fialho, but also able to take what Fialho was giving back to him. There was a couple moments where Tim Means looked a little shook, but was able to compose himself and get this fight, man. This was a very impressive outing for Tim Means. How long do you think he can continue to have these kind of fights, Derek? Because I'm guessing 42 to 45 is about the range. What do you think?
I think he's right there in the realm of Matt Brown, man. So yeah, I'm gonna give it like 42, and then I think it's time for everybody to call it a day at that, especially in this weight class and 170 pounds. It's time to definitely call it a day after that, or only fight old dudes. You know what I mean? But he fought a young Andre Fialho, and I thought, bro, the way that Fialho looked after the fight and he was taking his gloves off, I was like, all right, did you just retire this young man? Like, yo, Andre Fialho is just a couple years older than me, bro. You know what I mean? Like, sheesh, Tim Means. And this just reminds me, man, I'm like, Tim Means is such a how would you say, unassuming guy, man. This is a dude right here. He got the baby blues. He's very polite and all that good stuff, but he looks like a dude where it's a death wish. You get into a fight with this dude on the street, man. Like the conviction that he had in these strikes with Andre Fialho, he outstruck him 134-256. He just put it on him, man, nonstop. Like you said earlier, beat somebody like they stole something. Like you beat him like a smoker, bro. Like he did him dirty, man. So shout out to the Dirty Bird. God damn, that was a big win. All right, AJ. We want to talk about parlay busters, man. I mean, my parlay got busted with the Rafael Fiziev injury, which was terrible. But if there was the biggest parlay on buster on the card, it was the guy who was the biggest favorite on the card. And I'm talking about Jacob Malkoun, who at open was like minus 550. At close, my man was like minus 600, minus 800 over Cody Brundage. And we said Cody Brundage is good. He's always got good first rounds, right? But Mark Montoya has a good point where, he's a really good hammer, not a great nail. But he got the win by being the nail in this fight. AJ, illegal strikes are illegal strikes. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Especially when you were getting away with it throughout the course of the fight and it wasn't getting called. You hit somebody in their brain stem, you could literally give them a stroke and paralyze them for life. You can just change the trajectory of their outcome. So I think the rules were upheld correctly. But do you think that that should have been a no contest or a DQ given the amount of time that surpassed the fight?
I think that was the right call. Well, yeah, because it was only in the first round, Derek. I think it was the right call, not necessarily based on time, but based on the incident that occurred. If you're aiming for the ears and you hit the back of the head because they're moving, yeah, that's all well and fine. But I mean, Cody Brundage, his face was basically planted against the mat, and you threw a direct forearm that could have ended up in an elbow if you missed just a little bit. That's a very dangerous thing, and you can't even say you weren't aiming for the back of the head because an elbow hits straight. It's not looping around like a hook. It's basically a direct impact. Now, I think this was a good call, especially for having to follow through in the rules or upholding the rules. If an illegal strike is an illegal strike, if you're going to do it on a big fight like the Aljost Jan fight, which admittedly, yeah, it did last a lot longer, so you're able to have more rounds to judge. But I think the rule, regardless, needs to be upheld one way or another. I don't know. What do you think, Derek? Because it is a pretty drastic, I don't want to say one hit to the back of the head, but it seemed like it was pretty targeted. Would you agree or disagree?
Well, you just saw it a couple times in the fight, so it's like if you get warned, even if it's not an official warning, if you get caught doing it and they don't do nothing, and then you keep trying your luck, eventually your luck's gonna run out, and that's what happened. This was a John Jones loss right here. This was I beat the brakes off of you, but technically I lost because hit him with something that I shouldn't have. Now it's different because the 12-6 was nonsense on the John Jones end. This is actually deserved DQ. Don't hit people in the back of their head, especially with an elbow. Some people would say acting on the case of Cody Brundage. It was all of a sudden, I can't continue, I can't fight. I don't think that that's fair. I don't think that's a fair assessment. You get hit in the back of your head, man. There's a reason why that is illegal. It's because that will really mess you up, man. You'd be concussed, all the good stuff right there. So biggest parlay buster right here. I actually had him in a couple of my own parlays, and I was sick. I was sick to my stomach knowing that we had it. We had what we wanted. But some people who bet on the Cody Brundage first round finish, well, they came up big. Dude, they came up big. AJ, your sleeper. Let's talk about it. Muhammad Usman versus Jake Collier. Now, this fight was geared up to be a sleeper, and then, I mean, my sleeper sucked too, man. This wasn't really it. The eye poke changed everything right here, man. Let's talk about that. Usman gets the win, a pretty decisive decision victory over Jake Collier, but I do think that eye poke really affected the outcome of the fight. Do you think that these dudes need to, I mean, it's pride and ego, right? Do we need to be more calculated, I guess? You get poked in your eye on if you can continue the fight or not.
Well, I liked the new rule change they did, Derek, where if you get poked in the eye, you have 5 minutes to recover, and then the doctor can ask if you're okay to fight. I liked that new change. When they were announcing that, I was like, okay, that's actually smart, because what happens a lot of the time, you can't see within that first minute and a half, and you're panicking, heart's racing. Like, oh shit, am I going to go in here and do further damage to myself if I fight? Well, now you get 5 minutes before the question's even asked. So you still get a little longer to kind of debate. And you can see Jake Collier, when the moment was kind of hitting him, when he's realizing, he pounds the ground like, no, he's upset. He doesn't want to, end the fight like this. But then he gets a couple more minutes, gets able to recover and does that. But I do think that moment in the fight had a big impact because of how Muhammad Usman was able to recover from it. The gas didn't get going, and Jake Collier, arguably before that, was winning the fight. He was looking good. He was putting the pressure on. He had the bigger moments, and then Usman, like you said in the pre-show, Derek, ended up making this a wrestling match where he ran away with the fight. I do think the right man won, but I do think the eye poke definitely had a little bit of impact, a lot more than it should have maybe. What do you think, Derek?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much 100% in the same boat right there. I just think that it sucks when you see an eye poke change the course of the fight. Now, who's to say that Usman wouldn't have won had it, not had the eye poke? Like, Usman was doing what he needed to do to win. He started to be able to pick apart Collier with that. He was hitting him with a check hook, like, constantly. Just countering him, man, and that's the thing, man. The only thing that worries me in this fight is that what kind of continued success can Usman have, given that we're not really seeing him generate a ton of power on his shots. He's a small heavyweight. You know what I mean? Dude weighs in like 235 pounds or something like that. Do you think it's realistic for him to cut down to 205?
Realistic, I mean, a lot of guys are cutting a lot more weight than that, Derek, to make their weight class. So is it realistic? Yeah, but do I think he'll have success in it? I don't think so, because you're right. He's a small heavyweight, but he's still I mean, I guess he's a normal size light heavyweight, but even those dudes are big as can be, hitting hard, hitting with a lot of power. It seems like Muhammad Usman is more of the fast twitch kind of fighter, if you will, the Max Holloways of the world, where it's just punches and bunches and having to put pressure on. But even then, the wrestling and the gas tank that it takes to do that doesn't really seem to fit Muhammad Usman's style. Maybe he might need to just pack on some pounds, take the John Jones approach, and bulk up a little bit. What do you think is going to be more advantageous for Muhammad going forward, Derek?
I think we just need to see more. You know what I mean? We need to see more because he's having success against these guys. The way he picked up and dumped Collier, you know what I mean? It's like it's not like lacking in strength and power. Just a matter of like he's gonna run into one of these guys, and it's gonna be ugly. You know what I mean? And I just hope that day doesn't come soon, because even though I feel like people are betting against him all the time, people don't want to see him win, basically because he's Usman's younger brother or something like that. Maybe it's personality on tough, the way he rolls up on people in the weigh-ins and all that good stuff. But, Jake Collier got to be feeling away when he says, just because your brother can fight doesn't mean that you can. And then you proceeded to get decisioned, pretty conclusively. So, big win by Muhammad, the motor, Usman. All right. Mizuki, she makes her return, man, 3-year layoff, and she fights Hannah Goldie, and it was a very close competitive fight, but Mizuki did what she needed to do to win, re-entering into this division right here, women's flyweight division. I do think that Mizuki is a name that you need to watch out for, but Hannah Goldie, that's really what I wanted to talk about for this prelim right here, man. It just comes up short, just not quite where she needs to be. I do see the promise. I saw there was a lot of clinching going in here, which I thought she was going to be able to kind of get advantageous spots at, but AJ, sole win in her last 5 is against Emily Whitmire, which is not a great win given that your last losses were to Miranda Granger, Deanna Belbitsa, Molly McCann, and Mizuki. Do we see Hannah Goldie fight again in the octagon?
Ooh, I think so, Derek. I think we will, but should we, or at least should we soon? I don't think so. It was a rough one because Hannah Goldie goes into the fight looking dangerous, bro. Never skip back day Goldie is a term, man, because she was stout, bigger. I'm saying that because I'm jealous. I want to be that big going into this, but still you get outpowered and outpressured by Mizuki, who looked like the smaller normal size fighter, but she's bullying you around, kind of pushing you everywhere. It was not a good look for Hannah Goldie, especially after a 3-year layoff for Mizuki going forward. Derek, were you as not let down, but as underwhelmed, I guess is a better phrase, again, in the Hannah Goldie fight as I was?
No, just because I'm not going to say that I was down on Hannah Goldie, but I did see Mizuki being the clear favorite in this fight. I just thought the layoff was the thing that was been most concerning. And the thing that really concerned me ultimately is Mizuki was having success on the feet and then clinching Hannah Goldie, where I'm like, why would you clinch Hannah Goldie? You see how strong she is? Like, probably not a good idea, but she ended up being victorious. So big win right there. And then finally, AJ, I talked about this lastly because of how much of a letdown it was for my sleeper. Tamiris Vidal loses a split decision to Montserrat Rendon, which, AJ, I can't sit here and lie to you that I was just staring at it and I was like, you know what? I have the perfect conclusion for who should have won this fight. But from the times, because I was kind of like, I wasn't fully 100% locked in watching the fight, but from what I was watching, I was like, yo, Rendon, she's having some success. She's outstriking Vidal. She's just kind of putting it on her a little bit, but nothing with real power, real, you know what I mean, intensity to it. When it came down to the takedowns, a couple takedowns, Vidal playing guard, and that's what I think lost her the fight. He can't play jiu-jitsu and MMA. Very disappointing for supposed to be the new breath of life in the bantamweight division. I still think that she is, but what do you think about Rendon?
For Rendon, on the Rendon side, I mean, not bad. There's not much like greatness that came out of this fight, Derek. There wasn't anything that was just shell shock and blowing people out of the water. What kind of blew me away most was the level difference versus this fight versus the fight we just talked about, how both Mizuki and Goldie were able to go full 15 minutes with all the pop on their shots. You can tell they've been doing this quite a long time. And we see the third round of the Rendon Vidal fight, and man, it is just labored, slowest punches we've seen in quite a long time. It was interesting to see the vast difference versus the debutantes versus the ones who've been doing it for quite a while. Other than that, Derek, that was real. My big takeaway was if either of these girls go and fight a seasoned veteran in the UFC, it's gonna be a hell of a trek going forward. What do you think, Derek? Is there any weight to what I was saying, or am I a little playing it too hard?
No, I think you're 100% on the money, folks. My bad. Like I thought this was going to be a sleeper. I thought Vidal was setting us up for another finish right here, but Rendon, she steps onto the scene, and this was, I guess, the highlight of this one was Chris Liebens, UFC judging debut. Right, he scored the fight for Vidal, so I mean, there's that. So, all right, folks, that is a full run of your previews for UFC Vegas 79. Now, AJ, let us jump into the rankings review, but real quick, we have to make a decision on who exactly we're going to be ranking here. So got a couple divisions. I think the most apt one to talk about is probably 145. We could jump around though. So folks, join us on a rankings review. All right, today, like I said, 145 pounds. We just saw two top 15 guys, right? They were ranked, they were not top 10, but Dan Ige, who was sitting firmly at number 12 on the board. So folks, just a refresher if you haven't been here before, consensus rankings, UFC rankings, my rankings are in the middle, AJ's rankings are on the far right. Yes, we have Dan Ige, solidified, number 12. Bryce Mitchell at number 13, excuse me. Bryce Mitchell at number 11, he gets the big win. AJ, realistically, where does a win over a dude beneath you in the rankings actually kind of put you in this mix-em-up, man? Korean Zombie, obviously he's going to get removed given the retirement, but you then have Movsar Evloev, Giga Chikadze, Calvin Kattar. It gets interesting because now there's no going back. You have to fight these guys, and we're going to see if you're ready for those types of fights. So who do you think is the most winnable fight out of the top 10 for Bryce Mitchell?
Ooh, my eyes instantly get drawn to the Movsar Evloevs, Derek, but what about Josh Emmett? We haven't seen Josh Emmett in a while. Well, we've seen him a little bit recently, like 4 months ago, 5 months ago or something, but that right there, the style Josh Emmett brings, kind of that low centered where he's real hunked down, powerful, but still grabbable. I think that's a fight that might bode very well for Bryce Mitchell. What about you, Derek? Are there any other names that pop out?
Well, first, if you saw what Dan Ige did to Bryce Mitchell's eye, what do you think Josh Emmett is going to do when he hits him, man? I mean, that's going to be different right there. There is a guy that I personally would like to see him fight. I think it's going to be way too high of a jump just in terms of the number, but in terms of activity, I think it makes all the sense. I want to see Brian Ortega versus Bryce Mitchell. I want to see that fight. I think that's a really good fight right there because you have two way different style of grapplers and then arguably two legit strikers that just come from two completely different striking backgrounds, right? So you're going to see more like traditional boxing from Ortega. You're going to see the spinning kicks and the side kicks and the kind of karate stuff from Bryce Mitchell. So I think that'd be a really fun matchup. But do you think that given Brian Ortega, for whatever reason, is still number 3, even with the activity, that's just too far of a reach?
Yeah, too far of a reach. I don't see that matchup being happen at least for another 2 fights. I would love to see it. Don't get me wrong, Derek. I think you're right. Having that idea going into it stylistically makes a lot of sense. I just don't think Brian Ortega will even accept the fight, even if he is offered it, you know?
I mean, listen, beggars can't be choosers, man. This is the UFC, baby. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Number 3, it kind of surprises me. But yeah, I think that's where Bryce Mitchell falls. My question, I guess, because I think Sadiq Youssef, his next fight, I do believe it's against Edson Barbosa. So that takes Sadiq Youssef off the table. Dan Ige, he's got to fight somebody, right? Like, who does he fight next?
Man, that's maybe like the bottom 15, that Alex Caceres, the up-and-comers, Derek. We might see Dan Ige fall into the legitimate gatekeeper position, dropping below number 10, dropping below number 14, even really low down the map. I don't know, because even Alex Caceres, there's nothing drawing me to that fight besides it would be a good scrap, you know, same with Edson Barbosa. It'd be a good scrap, but do we see any fruit coming out of there? Not me personally.
I would also maybe like to see Bryce Mitchell versus Giga Chikadze. You know what I mean? I think that could be a fun one. Either way, you got to give them dangerous strikers. That's what the matchups have to be. And for Dan Ige, you have to give him dangerous wrestlers. It's pretty clear cut. That is your rankings review for UFC Vegas 79. All right. AJ, we made it to another outro. Now, the sad realization when we get here is that there will not be any UFC fights next week, unfortunately, right? You can go load up on your other MMA. If you were a fight fan, you were probably spoiled this weekend. We had Bellator. You had Josh Eblin get the big win over Fabian Edwards, Leon Edwards' brother, and then had a little dust him up in the cage with Leon Edwards himself, man. So, you know, lots of MMA out there, lots of good stuff to watch. Go enjoy your football, whatever your sports are. But AJ, take us on out of here, brother. Let's go enjoy the weekend. What do you think?
Woo, folks. Derek said in the beginning, I'm going to reiterate again, 1 away from 700. We need you. We need you and the person next to you that's watching this, that's wondering, why are you watching a recap of the fights we just watched before? It's so you can stay up on the current things that are going to be happening here in the future, so we can keep putting money in your pocket. I'm talking to you, the one that needs to subscribe. Press that button and let us know how much money you're winning, because we know what's out there. If you're taking our bets, you're taking our picks, and you're running to the sports book, you're definitely winning some money. Let us know down below. Be an advocate for us, man. We're winning money here left and right, so at least let the homies know. Let them know where you came from. Send it their way, so that way you can look like one of the big dogs getting cash every day, week in and week out. That's what we're doing here for you, and that's why we're your favorite fighter's favorite fight show. We're staying accountable. This was an accountability week, and there's reasons why we like to do that, because we're proving to you that we're here, we're real, and we're winning you money. What else can you ask? All we're asking, all I'm demanding, is that subscription down below, and make sure to share with your friends as well.
That's right, folks. Tell a friend to tell a friend. You know the vibes. No fights next week, but we will be back on the Friday for the October 7th Grant Dawson versus Bobby King Green fight. It's going to be amazing, folks. Until then, stay tapped in, stay safe. That's it for us. Until next time. Peace.